Hey, good afternoon, everybody. We are back live with the HireMilitary. I'm Matt Quick, the Director of Training and Programs. And today I have Andrew Stamp. And Andrew Stamp is a current Army soldier, Army veteran soon. He'll be transitioning to the civilian world back from his Special Forces duties on Fort Bragg. So we brought him on today because today is kind of like a Finance Friday. Finance is a big thing that people don't like talking about because it's like taboo. So we are talking about it on Fridays because it leads to the weekend. So, so Andrew is not really he's a financial educator. So he's not an expert yet, but he's looking to become one. And perhaps when he gets out, he can work with Dame Ramsey one day. So, hey, welcome, Andrew or Drew. Welcome, and tell us about yourself.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. So I joined the Army in 2010 after I graduated college, and in between graduating and joining, I actually spent 9 months in Russia doing a study abroad program over there, living in St. Petersburg. Came back, joined the Army with a Special Forces contract, and went right through that pipeline. Graduated in 2012, stayed on Fort Bragg, went to an operational team, stayed there for about 8 years, and came out last year to go to SWic, which is our Special Warfare Center in school where we train. And I've been working there for about a year. Knew that I was going to transition probably last year. My wife and I decided it was time. And so kind of started getting into this space. I came out of my social media black hole that I had lived in for my entire operational career.
That's good.
And discovered LinkedIn and, all the new things that the kids are talking about, like TikTok and things like that. So
whoa, not TikTok, right? We'll stay right here on LinkedIn.
All right, good.
Hey, so right now we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and our YouTube channel. So if you're on Facebook, again, come over to LinkedIn. That's where it's at. We're talking live today with Drew Stamp. And if you have any questions, just ask them on the chat. I'll be looking over here and taking some questions for Drew. Drew, so you went to college. You're a Russian linguist. That sounds pretty cool. And you joined SF. Why?
I had that itch to serve since I was a kid. I grew up in a city outside Detroit and just always wanted to serve. Always talked about it with my buddies. Tried to join the Marines out of high school. I was young as a senior. I was only 16, and my parents wouldn't support it. It was in 2003 when things were getting pretty heavy in Iraq. And so they said, go to college first, and if you still want to join, obviously you can. You'll be old enough. And so that's what I did. So when I graduated, I still had that itch. So I wanted to serve. I looked at Special Forces because I already spoke Russian, and I knew there was a heavy emphasis on foreign culture, integration, and immersion, and learning, new languages. So I went that route, hoping that I'd get to use Russian, in the operations and whatnot, and that's why I did it.
So I'm not going to gloss over this, but you graduated high school at 16?
No, I graduated at 17, but I was 16 for most of my senior year. No, I graduated at 17. I'm not
pretty smart then.
Boy genius. No, just young.
Okay, all right, we get that.
Just young for my grade.
So, so what kind of cool things? Because there will be SF or Special Forces questions on the feed. So to get out in front of that, what kind of cool things did you do as a Special Forces operator or communications guy in the SF community?
That's a good question. I guess,
without getting too deep, if we don't have to, right?
No, sure. I mean, honestly, I thought all of it was pretty cool. It was essentially what I expected. I mean, I didn't know anything about the military coming in. I thought every day was like what I saw in Forrest Gump. I thought we all stayed in open bays and we all stayed in uniform all the time, and you yelled when you talked all the time. That's what I knew about the military. So I thought SF experience was great. We definitely take care of our people. There's no question about that. I got to travel the world for sure. Did a lot of training. We did combat deployments. Trained other partner forces. SF's got 9 principal tasks. So it's not just direct action. It's not just combat. There's a lot of other things that SF can be tasked to do. So I did get to take a trip to Kyrgyzstan with my team where they speak Russian there. So I was an asset to the team as a new guy. That was a really cool thing. Spent some time in Africa. So I enjoyed the experience. I thought the people were great. And that part of it's going to be tough to leave behind, truthfully.
Okay. I can get it. It's a small community, so it's definitely tight. There's 2 questions. Looks like Dawood Akil, a USMC veteran, Semper Fi. He asked, what type of financial industry are you interested in getting into when you get out of the military? We'll jump right into that, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's an awesome question because if you'd asked me 5 months ago, I wouldn't have had a good answer to that question. So the more I learn about that industry when it comes to being, especially a financial advisor, the more I realize I don't really want to do that. I like helping people, working with other folks, call them clients, call them friends, whatever. I do enjoy that. I do enjoy working together, helping someone out with their plans. But what I've seen in the military, the Army specifically, and SOF, SF specifically, what I've seen is there's just a general lack of knowledge on personal finance basics. Guys haven't mastered the basics. And that's something that SF is big on. People think, it's the gear and it's all these other resources. The truth is a good special operations guy mastered the basics really well. And I think it's the same with personal finance. So where I'd like to go with it is the education piece. That's why I had you call me an educator. So I'm trying to teach these principles to folks when they're young. Part of my full-time job now, working with folks in transition, I'm telling them about personal finance, and they're saying, man, I wish I would have known this 25 years ago when I was a private. And so I'm saying, okay, I'm going to get ahead of that then. I'm going to get in front of the privates that are on Fort Bragg, where I've got reach right now. And I'm going to teach classes. I'm going to teach them the basics. I'm going to teach them how to invest long-term. It doesn't matter if they're going to do 2 years or 30 years. They can set themselves up for success with the resources the military offers them.
Now, that makes sense. And Jim Ferguson asks, what background do you have in financial planning?
So no real certified background or anything like that. I got my team sergeant in Afghanistan said, you seem to be savvy with this stuff. I want you to teach a class to the detachment because guys are re-enlisting overseas, getting big tax-free bonuses. I want them to do the right thing.
Yep.
So I built and designed a class. Started learning more from free resources, read a lot of books, followed a lot of Dave Ramsey stuff. Really enjoyed it. Got involved with teaching his curriculum at my church. Learned a lot through there. And then this year, I actually received a scholarship through the American College of Financial Services. And so I'm in a pipeline right now for chartered financial consultant and certified financial planner. So don't have any official designations yet or anything like that, but I am getting the formal curriculum to go with it.
So kind of like a parent, you're learning this as you go, but you're getting better every day, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I sat down in Afghanistan with a lieutenant colonel who was going through divorce, who had questions about personal finance. He asked me 20 questions and I had an answer for maybe 10 of them. So in the process of trying to answer his questions, I learned more about those other 10 aspects I didn't know about. So that's kind of how I've learned over the last 7 or 8 years I've been doing this.
And that makes sense because each Friday I do a post on Finance Friday and I ask questions and I give out my personal experiences, but I can't teach this stuff, but it actually raises the question. It raises the conversation. I learned so much from just the discussion itself. And it helps me educate more people because they educate me. So it helps out. So how'd you get from being an SF guy to being an educator during transition, as you're transitioning?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know what? It's kind of natural when you think about it because Green Berets are supposed to be master trainers. Above all, we're supposed to be expert teachers. We're supposed to be able to interact with anyone from any culture, any background, and teach them whatever the skill set is that we're trying to convey. So for me, it felt natural. I was teaching the detachment. I started expanding that. I teach the classes within the companies, within the battalions. I got introduced to a guy back in January who works in the same organization I do at the group level. And they're trying to build a transition program, not to replace SFL TAP on Fort Bragg, but essentially to augment it and to offer a little bit extra than what SFL TAP has, and really just align the resources that already exist and point the service members to those resources depending on what they're trying to do. So he asked me if I'd be interested in building and standing up this program as kind of my last final assignment, and I gave it some thought and agreed to do it. So that's what got me here. That
makes sense. Hey, Lily Wright says, she asked, would you suggest new service members meet financial counselors as soon as they are able to?
Yes, absolutely. If we're talking about the financial counselors that work on post, I would 100% recommend that. If we're talking about financial advisors, outside, I would say that service member needs to be equipped with some good knowledge before they go and interact with a financial advisor, because there's some bad apples out there. And in the financial advising world, there's not a lot of money to be made off of a 19 or 20-year-old private. In most standard advisor compensation models, the only way you're really going to make money off them is selling them a product that they may or may not need. So I always try to equip soldiers at the young age, but absolutely for the financial counselors that are already on post, they should talk to them.
And we'll get back into the products later on, like life insurance. But a great question, Lily. Another question from Wesley Morgan. What's your number one recommendation to transition service members? What's your number one tip?
Mm.
Hey, these tough questions you got to answer, man.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Here's what I'll say, because this is what worked best for me. Ask for help. So, I don't know if I don't think it's organic to SF or SOF or Army military. I think it's just a cultural thing. We love our independence in this country, but I think as part of that, sometimes we hesitate to ask for help. And what I found is it's awesome to ask for help because people are out there and they want to help you. Like what you're doing, Matt, in the process of you trying to help other people with finances and open up, conversations on a subject, you're actually learning something. And so that's what I'd say is ask for help. Put your pride away and just ask for help.
Yeah, it's a good question, Wesley. And listen, when I was transitioning, I think it was 18 months ago now. As soon as I knew I wanted to retire from the military, I got with a mentor. I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. Help me out. He says, get out a piece of paper and pencil and let's jot some things down. We jotted things down. I knocked them out. A week later, we went over that. I had 2 of the 3 things done. He said, stop messing around, get them all done. And a mentorship was so good. So definitely ask for help because we have no idea what we want to do when we get out.
Yep.
So speaking to you, me and Drew had lunch last week, and we talked at length about a few things. And one of the things is, how can you educate somebody on personal finances if your finances aren't good? Yours are, right?
I mean, I guess it depends on what metric you're using, right? But yeah, I mean, absolutely, we are. I mean, my family,
okay.
Up until the COVID thing, right? Like we were taking vacations. We took lots of vacations.
Yeah.
We travel. We save for retirement. We tithe 10% of our income to the church. We save for our kids' education. People get this idea that if you're budgeting and you got your finances in order, that you're somehow living like paupers and you're not enjoying life. And so, I mean, I'm an open book. When I sit down with someone, whether it's an 18-year-old private or a 55-year-old lieutenant colonel, I basically open my portfolio. I say, well, this is where I am. I've been doing this about 9 years, and this is where I'm at. So if that's something you want to be a part of, I'm all about helping out. I think we're doing well.
Me, because you're transitioning soon, right? When do you get out? In like 8 months?
Yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say 8 months. It's going to be a med retirement, a med board. So
okay.
It's kind of up however that goes.
It's up in the air then. So when I was getting out, I wanted to make sure I was nearly debt-free. The only debt I was carrying was a car loan with 2 years left. So I got rid of all credit card debt, all kind of debt. So I'm sure your debt to income ratio is pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, if that's the metric we're using, I'd say it's pretty good. We have no debt. We owe on our house, but that's it. We don't keep any debt. We don't finance any vehicles. It's something that we've just sworn off. I've seen it just ruin people, and I've seen the devastation it takes on marriages, on mission readiness, all kinds of stuff. So for me, it's just not worth it. My wife and I have agreed we're not going to mess with that anymore. So we're trying to pay the house off as quickly as we can.
That's a good point too, because you mentioned you and your wife are on the same step when it comes to finances. My wife and I, we talked about it. I knew I only had less than 10 years to go in the military. We decided to let's pay our debt off, save some money, and have a really stress-free or anxiety-free military transition. And it really worked. We got rid of that debt. We had a savings. I had nothing to worry about. And I got my life insurance before I got my disability. So that was cheap too. So I had no debt, decent military retirement, life insurance. So right now I'm living pretty good only because I don't really worry about much. So you have a few months left. So would you recommend life insurance for someone getting out? And you're not retiring. You're getting out after, what, 12 years?
Yeah, I'll be at probably 11, but I'm at 10 right now. That's right.
Okay, so you're getting out. You're not retiring. You're getting out. So,
right.
So would you recommend life insurance for people that are getting out of the military, and why?
Yeah, great question. I mean, everyone will always tell you it depends, right? And so it does depend. But I will tell you, in most cases in the military, if the service member's got a family, has a spouse, unless they're super, super wealthy, really high net worth individuals, they should have supplemental life insurance to the SGLI anyways. The way that a lot of times folks will calculate is 10 to 12 times your annual income. That's how much you should have in coverage if you're going with term policies. And I find it might need a little bit more. It just depends on if you're following a holistic plan to be debt free or not. If you got a bunch of debt, you got to cover that in your term policy. It was hard for me to get coverage. I actually made a call to get coverage from Landstuhl. And they went through and they said, okay, have you been hospitalized in the last 3 months? I said, I'm actually calling from a hospital. Said, oh, okay. Well, what happened? I said, well, I got shot. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, what's your job? And I told them, well, I'm 18 Fox. And they said, okay, well, yeah, we don't insure, we can't insure you. Basically, we can't write a policy for that. Okay. I mean, I should have known, truthfully, and I should have gotten insurance, maybe extra insurance before I came in. But when I came in, I was single. The situation's changed.
Yes.
What I found were there were 2 organizations that would insure me as a 18 series special forces guy. And so one was AFMA, AAFMAA, and the other one was Navy Mutual. So they both insured me with term policy, or excuse me, they would have insured me with term policies. I went with AFMA. I got an $800,000 term policy that'll last me till I'm 50 years old. It's $33 a month. So between that and my SGLI, that's right. Yeah, it's completely reasonable. And so when I'm teaching these classes, again, whether it's to privates or a commander at an LPD, I'm trying to plug that organization and say, look, I know you guys think you're not insurable because you're 18 series, but you are. That organization is not for profit, so they're not spending a ton of money on advertising and things like that. Soldiers need to know about stuff like that. They absolutely need to know, especially if they're in combat arms and they can't get supplementary life insurance, because in most cases, unfortunately, SGLI is probably not enough to carry the spouse through a lot of years.
Because $400,000 or $500,000 seems like a lot of money at the time, but when you replace income, like you mentioned, for 8 to 10 or 12 years, it's not a lot of money. It's a big money, a chunk of money, but supplemental income or life insurance isn't bad. So for $30 a month, you get $800,000 more. That's really protecting your family, and that's a big deal, right?
That's all it is. Yeah, that's what it is. You're right.
So Robert Best, he's a transitioning Army officer. He's asked a question, and this is for you because you're a financial educator. I'm not. Outside of understanding your military pension, federal tax incentives, and your disability, what other areas would you suggest transition military focus on?
Okay,
so I try to clarify it.
No, it's cool. I mean, okay. So if we're talking about just topics for study, I think those are good. Definitely want to understand VA benefits, 9/11 GI Bill, understand the transferability if it's something you're looking into to transfer to your dependents. Certainly anything having to do with disability compensation. What I find myself talking to most people about, they come with these questions, but the real issue is the behavior. It's the personal finance behavior today. And so that honestly takes more effort and it's harder for folks to change, but that's where I find most of the conversations end up leading to, because we get down the weeds about, well, is it better to invest in this? Or I heard a better tax advantage right now if I do traditional over Roth. It's like, well, are you even investing? We're talking about an investment of what, $100 a month, and you're a major and you make this much money, but you're only putting $100 a month towards your investments in either your IRA or TSP. So what we really got to talk about is the behavior. Let's talk about the debt. Let's talk about the behavior. Increase your monthly margins a little bit so you have some money to work with, and then we'll talk investments.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because people ask me, what should I invest in? Listen, I talk about what I invest in. I have fun investing, whether it's individual stocks, sports cards. Listen, I have fun with it right now because I spent years not doing it. So I do it now. Yeah. But one of the questions said, well, should I invest in this? My thing is, it depends on what you want to do. But I ask them, how much debt do you have? How much credit card debt do you have? So if they have like $10,000 in credit card debt at a 25% interest rate, don't invest money in the 2% share. Pay that debt down. What do you think about that?
I think that's great advice. Yeah, I think. Yes. I mean, I can't disagree with you there. No, that's awesome advice. I mean, again, I'm not a fan of debt. Regardless, I've been in all the conversations and discussions about compare your interest rate on your debt to the interest rate on your investment and play that game. What's interesting? I've never met anybody who regrets paying off debt. So that's what I'm looking at. I've never met someone who's like, man, I wish I hadn't paid off the truck. Like, I could have made way more money if I'd have put it in, coffee or gold or whatever. Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't get out enough, but for me, it's an easy decision. Just keep the debt out of your life. It's going to be much easier. And
realistically, listen, debt happens. I'm not going to lie to you and say I was debt-free my whole life. Up until I was probably a staff sergeant or E6 in the military, I carried debt because the military is a great place to serve, but it doesn't pay you great. And I lived outside of my means. We did. That's the nature of the beast. But once you figure out, oh my God, I really should do this, you're like, okay, you have a conversation with your family and say, listen, this is how we got to do it, and you work with it. And I went to financial counseling a few times just to check things out, and I was way off balance. So, like Lillian Wright asked earlier, financial counseling or assistance is a great tool. It's an azimuth check for you and your family. This is what you should be doing. Just focus on this. And like you mentioned, behavior change. That's a huge deal right there.
It's a huge deal, and it goes back to what you said about mentorship. It's tough to do by yourself. What you want to do, ideally, surround yourself with other folks who are trying to do the same thing that can hold you accountable. It's like if you're going from sitting on your butt every day of the week to like suddenly I want to be a fitness guru, it's probably good to join a gym and be around other people that are doing it because you're not going to have the motivation to do it yourself. It's no different with personal finance. It takes practice. Just to clarify too, like you, I also had debt. I thought it was normal. I thought it was a regular thing. It's something that at this point, like we're not turning back. And I think you really hit the nail on the head because you said, well, the military doesn't pay a lot, but then you said, well, it was us living outside our means.
Yes.
And it's awesome that you can admit that because I've worked with lots of people, lots of ages, lots of income ranges that still won't admit that. And that's why I said it comes back to the behavior question.
Yeah, listen, personal accountability is huge, but I had 2 small kids and I want to give them more than I had as growing up. So you go in debt with this stuff. You try to show your family that we've got this. We have a great lifestyle, and really the debt was an actual thing. Hey, someone asked about VA home loans. Do you talk about those in your finance classes at all?
Yeah, so I mean, there have been some changes, I guess, this year when it comes to the funding fee for VA home loans. The reason everybody likes the VA home loans, from what I can gather, is because you can go with 0 down. And so that's great for a service member who doesn't have a lot of money to put away. But traditionally, it's a more expensive way to finance a house. It's more expensive in the long run. So when you look at what you're paying versus if you put 20% down on a conventional loan and at like a 15-year fixed rate or a 30-year fixed rate. So I kind of align with Dave Ramsey here. He recommends get a 15-year fixed rate, have that monthly payment be no more than a quarter of your take-home pay. So that, again, you're not house poor. You're staying within your means. The thing is with soldiers, it's like, man, are you PCSing every 3 years? I've been at Bragg 10 years. I bought a house in 2013. I've been in the same house ever since. But if you're moving every 3 years, that can be a risky game because right now things have been good. Real estate market's done very well for a good period.
Yeah.
But when that market flips and it's not doing so well for a year or two and you got to move, you're left in a hard spot. And so that's what I'd say to that. It's if a guy wants to go with a VA home loan and he has nothing to put down, he wants to go, 0 down and just avoid like PMI and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Man, I'm telling you, like it's usually an indicator of bigger behavioral problems. I'm not saying that a private or a specialist or something like that can save up enough money for 20%. I see that, but maybe it's just not the right time in their life to really get a house.
Again, that's a personal choice, and you're right. They want to show that their friends or their families that they made it, and they want to buy a house. And you're right, because being house poor is a thing. So if you're a specialist or a sergeant in the military and E5 and you're living in a $400,000 house you can barely afford, you can't afford to enjoy life because you're paying for the house. But it's good to show it off in the Facebook photos, right?
Yeah. No, man, you can't trust the Facebook. I don't think it's what I think is cool, and I'll tell younger guys this, especially if they're able to come into it with a 20% down payment. I'll say, look, structure it so that it never goes above your BAH. Because if you stay in the Army, your BAH is going to go up. That mortgage payment is going to stay the same. And you've already proven you can live on an E5 pay. So continue to keep that mindset as you advance through the ranks, or an E4 pay or whatever. I made a budget when I was living in the barracks. When I was in the qualification course, I had a budget. I lived on a budget. I think I gave myself like $150 a month to go out to eat. I saved a ton of money, but I was like, super nerd with it. I don't expect most people to do that. I still enjoyed life. I just wasn't going out as much as my friends, I guess. In the end, I had enough money that I could put down a down payment on a house when it was time to move out. And so I said, I know I can live on an E4 pay, and now I can live on an E5 pay, live on an E4 pay with that E5 pay and use that extra margin for something else.
That makes sense. And it's a common sense thing, but I think once we see we have more money, we want to spend more. Some of that money burns holes in our pockets and we just lose it. right?
I know what you mean. Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
So tell us about the course you teach for SWic for the transitioning folks. So it's not just transitioning out of the military; it's coming into the
Mhm.
military and going back into the conventional forces, right? Tell us about the populations that you target with your
Sure.
courses.
Yeah. So the program we have, essentially, we broke it down into 3 different modules. So the obvious module is the guy getting out, right? You're getting out of the Army. So that one's covered, right? Lots of transition assistance for that. But the other 2 modules is we're trying to better transition guys into special operations because it's a different culture. Whether you're coming from conventional forces or you're coming off the streets as an 18 X-ray, coming from civilian straight into, into that pipeline. So we think there's some things we can do better to equip guys to get ready for that culture change, especially when it comes to families. Guys who are married, it's important for their spouses to understand the lifestyle that they're about to get into. And then the other module is guys working either in staff or in instructor roles, going back out to the operational force. And so what we're trying to do with assistance there is kind of one, we want to offer kind of like a reset. If they got issues with their marriage, with their kids, they want to get resources on that. We want to just align those resources and show them what's out there. The other thing we talk about that we're able to do is get them civilian credentials, certifications, things like that. We want them to think about that final transition out of the military. So even if they're at E7, they're at 8 years, and they're on their way to become a CSM, we want them to think about that transition. Hey, are your finances in order? How are things going? How are things in your marriage? Have you thought about a professional certification? What are you like project management? Okay, well let's help you get certified in project management. That will help our force, the way we approach problem solving and mission planning. And then when you're out of the military, it'll certainly help you land a job.
And that makes sense. And you mentioned certification. So during your final 6 months of military service, the DoD and the Army and the Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, they all offer the DoD Skill Bridge or career skill programs. Do you talk about that in your transition courses? And if so, are you going through it yourself?
So yes, we talk about it. No, I'm not going through it myself yet, but I intend to. Remember at the beginning when I told you, when you asked about what SF life was like, I said it was good. We take care of our people. One thing I've noticed that's different, at least from what I've seen, is the commanders within special operations, specifically where I work, they support the service member who's transitioning. So a service member says, I'm getting out. I want to do 6 months skill bridge internship. I want to max it out. I want to do a DoD skill bridge for 6 months. Okay, like that's it. You got it. And so I haven't spent any time in the regular Army. I've been told that's not the case, that it's not always that easy to support. Can't really comment on that, honestly, if I haven't experienced it. But what I'll say is I think, a huge blessing of being, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's a huge blessing of working where I work, being able to tell a guy, hey, yeah, absolutely. You want to do that, we will support it.
I'll tell you, we've seen most commanders will support the DoD Skill Bridge or Career Skills program. Most do. The ones that don't, it's not that they don't really support it, they don't understand it. So we reach out. So myself, Jason Willett, Chris Thorne, John Snyder, we reach out to the commanders, the leaders to say, hey, we educate them on it. And I tell you, once they know about it, they support their people more. So really, it's not a non-support issue; it's a non-educated issue. So it's not their fault because they're not in the space yet. We educate them; they let their people use it; they use it in turn. It's a great cycle. So there are different, and you mentioned the certification process. So I want to throw a link up here for Onward Opportunity. That's one of the best programs transition folks can take advantage of. Onward Opportunity is Syracuse University funded program that allows you to get certified in PMP, Scrum, Agile, PHR, all kinds of IT stuff. Just go to the website and check them out. You're eligible for that program once you're within 6 months of your military service. Military spouses are available. Veterans are eligible. Get there and check it out. But there's different paths that people get or go to when they get out of the military. Some want to fully retire. Some want to get a job. Some want to go to school. The path that we don't talk about enough is entrepreneurship. So there's a path that you can take for entrepreneurship that can be really anything you want to do. Do you know about entrepreneurship and how are you taking that if you're getting into that area, Drew?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm learning more about that every day. And so just like there's, organizations out there for a guy, like you've got all these different vets to X, right? Vets to name the industry. And so they have this as well for entrepreneurs. So there's resources available, free stuff. I'm trying to tap into that, learn more about that. Me personally, I would love to continue doing what I'm doing here and then do it on the outside as an entrepreneur. If I can find a way, and I say monetize it because I need to earn an income to support my family.
Gotta support your family.
I'm not trying to make millions of dollars off this idea. But what I'd like to do is essentially come on and teach personal finance basics to soldiers. I don't want to sell them investments. I don't want to sell them life insurance. I want to teach them the basics in personal finance. So I don't want to charge them for that. I don't think a soldier should have to pay for something like that. And so the folks will say, well, the Army already does that, right? I don't think that's true. I don't think it's good enough. I know we've got the accredited financial counselors, and that's great. They're awesome at what they do. But truthfully, the classes that they're giving, I just don't think it's having the impact. I think if we were having that impact, you'd see a lot less 2020, Ford F-150s driving around Fort Bragg today.
They are nice looking, though.
Oh, it looks great. It's like one giant car dealership.
Yeah. Hey, Ted Asperazza, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, Ted. He's a first sergeant in 8th PSYOP group, and their community is very supportive. He asked, do you brief on Fort Bragg? And if you do brief on Fort Bragg, when and where?
Yeah, great question. I'm like an a la carte briefer. So if he wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, Ted, connect with me, and you tell me where and when, and I will be there and I will brief. And it's that simple. If it's on Fort Bragg, I will brief to your organization. Right now, I have kept my briefings primarily with the Special Forces guys, simply because that's my influence, that's my sphere. I'm trying to get out to other units. I've reached out to a couple folks in civil affairs and in PSYOPs. If you want a personal finance class, you tell me what you want me to teach on, and I'll come and teach it. I'm not charging anybody. I'm not getting paid, by the way, and I don't want to get paid. I'm just trying to bring you the information. So
Ted, reach out to Drew Stamp on LinkedIn and link up. How long's your briefing, Drew?
It's whenever Ted wants. So
okay,
I can go an hour. I can do 4 hours. My idea, right? So if I take the full gambit, if I go entrepreneur route, I want to design a whole curriculum. I want to have an option. So we talked about how to equip a soldier so he's prepared to go talk to a financial advisor. I want to be able to teach something like that. That's something that the commander can give that soldier in the form of this curriculum. Say, hey, what kind of questions should I ask that advisor? How do I know if that advisor is acting in a true fiduciary capacity? Things like that. They want to talk strictly an hour on mortgages. We can talk an hour on mortgages. An hour on budgeting, we can do budgeting. So if Ted tells me what he wants and he wants to do an hour, that's perfect. I usually do an hour with 15 minutes questions and answer, but I've gone as long as 3.
So Drew's stand-up act is about an hour. So that definitely reach out for him. And if you're on Fort Bragg, reach out. He'll come to you with no compensation. Well, give him a T-shirt. Give him a giveaway, though. Be fair.
I mean, really, I'm there. And I tell you what, I think it's funny, Matt, because I remember reading a long time ago, you had posted something on LinkedIn with your phone number, and someone was like, I can't believe you're giving out your number, right? So at the end of all my classes, I put my contact information up. And some instructor was like, man, I can't believe you do that. Like, these dudes will call you. I said, listen, I've taught over 1,000 folks so far on Fort Bragg. I think I've taken less than 10 calls. So I'm going to keep my number up there until I can't handle the response. The truth is, man, like we said at the beginning, you got to ask for help. I am out there, and I tell these guys, these students, I'm not your cadre. I'm not going to tell you to do push-ups. I don't tell you to stand up, parade, rest. Just call me Drew. We'll get lunch or coffee or whatever. We'll go over your budget. We'll go over whatever it is. It's a genuine offer. I'm not looking for anything in return, truthfully. This energizes me. To help people do this, it gives me energy. And it's funny because people don't really believe that initially. They're thinking to themselves, what are you trying to sell to me? And even it's funny you mentioned the phone calls because I was traveling for work. I'll have a 6-hour road trip, so I open up for conversations. And one person called. They said, well, how much does this cost? I'm like, we're on the phone now. Why would it cost any money? Well, people actually charge money. They say, hey, deposit this and this, and I'll talk to you for an hour. That's not what I did. I tried to keep conversations to a half hour, 15 minutes, so I can get more conversations. But if they went over, no extra charge. So that was too bad. Hey, so you're transitioning soon. What are your plans when you get out? I know you want to go into entrepreneurship route. You want to, educate. Is there anyone you want to work with? Maybe an organization out there. Maybe Dave Ramsey. That's a good guy. Would you want to work with him? Yeah. Simple answer.
That was fast.
I'd be all about working with Dave Ramsey. Yeah, absolutely. I think I followed him and his principles for a long time. I'm a huge fan of his message. I have seen the transformation that takes place with someone who's broken and completely trapped by their finances. I've seen the switch around. I've seen what it does for married couples who aren't talking about anything, let alone finances. And suddenly they're like laughing together and working as a team to like pay off debt and save money for retirement. You called it there. I'm definitely interested in that. It's funny, man. I will tell you, I was talking with a guy earlier this week. We were just talking about like some issues that guys we know have, some other soft guys. And I don't know if you know this, but the motto of the Green Berets is to free the oppressed, right? But like I look across the formation and it's like we're the ones who are oppressed. We're oppressed by like financial stress is for real. It's oppressing guys. Like it's hitting them because man, you can lose a clearance. It can lose a marriage. I've seen the devastation it takes on families. It's for real. And I don't know. I've never been, so played with it that I've needed intervention from my commanders. But I just wonder, what does a commander do in a situation like that? It's like they can't get involved until it's too late. Well, he's getting his clearance pulled. Man, like what could we have done a year ahead of time and say, hey, look, this is actually easier than you think. Well, it's simple. It might not be easy. It's not easy to modify behavior, but it's simple at least. And we'll teach you how to do it. That's what bothers me the most. And so I know that's not specific to SF. That's everywhere. So I'm just trying to help with that.
That's a good point. And it's funny because personally, my wife and my kids and I, we do this thing now every month or so. And really it's we use Credit Karma. And we check our credit scores once a month or once a week, whatever it is. And for the first time, my wife's credit score is better than mine by like 2 points. All right. So I'm proud, and my kids, they're getting better. Right. So my wife will walk around the house. She goes, hey, credit check. So we pull our phones up, we do our credit check, and she's beating me. So we send to the kids, hey, credit check. So it's a fun thing. And we watch it every month. We watch credit scores go up because debt's going down and responsibility is all around. So we have fun with that. And it didn't start till probably a couple years ago, but we do it every once in a while, and it's fun. So maybe command teams can. I mean, they can't mandate, but hey, credit check, guys. What's going on? It's a fun thing to do. And if you're got a 500 score or 800 score, it's fun to watch those scores go up over time. So it's one of those things.
Well, here's the thing. I don't want to, ruin your picnic, but so.
Come on,
I met a guy a couple weeks ago, right? So he was telling me he came up at the end of my class, and he must not have listened to the class because he should have known my answer before he came up. But he basically came up, chest kind of out. He's like, hey, so, I'm thinking of buying a house, and I got an 830 credit score. I said, okay, cool. So, what's your question? So we got into it a little bit. And turns out, like, the guy doesn't have a dollar saved. I think he had about $800 in a savings account. He had 2 motorcycles and a truck. He's a single guy, not married. So credit score makes it great to go out and get debt, right? But it's not an indicator at all of your financial health. All it says you know how to do is take out credit and pay bills. So is it an indicator that like someone has their behavior right? Maybe. If the behavior is just paying off bills, yes. But it doesn't mean that they've got any money saved. In other words, you can have a credit score of 850 and have no money to your name, but you paid all your bills on time. So that's my comment on that.
That makes sense. So invite Drew to your place of business for education. He'll crush your dreams.
He'll ruin the picnic.
He'll change your behavior. Now I'm gonna go now to my kids, say, hey, what is your net wealth? So yeah, okay, I'm gonna change it now.
I like
right?
that. Yeah. How have your investments done this year?
But I'm not gonna crush them, right? I'll crush them next year. I'll teach them this year. But no, that's good. That's good. So anything else you want to talk about before we end this discussion? Because it's been great so far. We're going on 38 minutes, and people are learning a lot, hopefully. Not a lot of questions because people don't like asking questions about finances in an open forum. But they'll reach out to you after this is over, though.
Probably because, they saw that if I follow Dave Ramsey, they already know the answer to my questions. Because I don't think that guy's changed it. He hasn't changed his advice, in 30 years. And so, like I said, it's not necessarily easy, but it's simple. But no, honestly, anybody I understand every situation is different. I'm not going to beat you with. I'll help you out. If you need help getting on a plan and you say, well, I'd like you to help me out, but I'm not interested in paying off my car early. I'm not going to tell you to walk away. You know my stance on it, and I'll help you the best way that I can. So if you're on Bragg and you either have units or guys I can talk to, gals I can talk to, bring me out. And if you're not on Bragg, you're interested in doing something virtual or just a friendly advice to talk, I love to talk about this stuff, as you can tell.
But after this live broadcast is over, I'll mention Drew's name in the broadcast so you can reach out to him directly. But reach out to him. Ask him questions. He's not a financial expert. He's not a certified financial planner. He's an educator. He's learning because he cares about it. And he'll reach out. He'll talk to you. A lot of it, we have opinions. We have personal experiences. We share those to hopefully do that. One more question from Hope Carson. Do you cover how to handle a government travel card?
Yes. Hope, if you have a specific question about it, I can cover it. But if you want that in a class, or you're interested in like the block of instruction, I think the JTR has probably 400 pages about how to handle the government travel card.
So read that first, right?
Yeah, I read that. No, but really, it's pretty simple. Don't touch it unless you're TDY, and then you only really have to use it for the expenses that they say you have to. So that's what I'd say.
So Hope, good question. Reach out to Drew directly, and he'll ask you any specific questions you want about the government travel card. Good thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Drew,
I've heard a lot of guys get in trouble with that. So
they do. Just use it for your hotels, maybe your plane, maybe some gas. Don't use it any place you're not supposed to be. Off-limit establishments. Try not to do that, right? So, hey, Drew, thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it. I learned a lot today. I learned that credit scores aren't as well as I thought they were going to be, so I can crush my wife now because hers is better than mine. So I'm gonna.
I don't want to ruin the whole Quick household.
I'm gonna tell her that, man. So thanks for coming on today, and I hope to see one of your classes one day. I'll stop by and check things out. Hopefully, I'll get involved with you on Fort Bragg. And
that'd be awesome.
Again, let's talk soon. And for the rest of you, I'll be back on live on Monday afternoon, 3 or 4 p.m. East Coast time, 12 or 1 p.m. Pacific time. I don't really decide this in the last minute, so we'll figure it out. So 3 or 4. Drew, again, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll see everybody soon. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care.
Thank you for having me.